Let's get a check now of the top business news stories. Our business editor, Kate Moody, say hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Inflation's back in the headlines. Prices still rising across much of the Eurozone.
Yeah, and this is really complicating things for the European Central Bank ahead of its policy announcement on Thursday as it tries to decide whether to keep raising interest rates and by how much. Now, headline inflation rose slightly from 6.9% in March to 7% in April. Most analysts had expected a flat reading. Eurozone inflation peaked at 10.6% in October, but it's still far above the ECB's 2% target. The trend isn't all negative. Core inflation, which removes volatile food and energy prices, fell from 5.7 to 5.6%. European economies are struggling with sticky inflation and slow growth. France, for example, saw inflation tick up to 6.9% on the harmonized index compared to 6.7% in March. GDP across the bloc expanded by a weaker than expected 0.1% in the first quarter of the year. Meanwhile, demand for business loans has fallen at the fastest rate since the 2008 financial crisis. That's another sign that the Eurozone economy is not yet out of the woods. Well, outside the European Union, households and businesses are facing price pressure as well. Food prices across the UK were 15.7% higher in April compared to a year earlier. That's the biggest increase since 2005, according to the British Retail Consortium. Inflation remains stubbornly above 10%, with food and energy costs driving that rise. The U.S. Federal Reserve is kicking off its latest two-day policy meeting, also grappling with slowing economic growth, but an improvement in inflation numbers there. America's central bank will be facing tough questions about the impact of its interest rate hikes on the banking sector, following the collapse of Silicon Valley and Signature banks and the more recent rescue of First Republic Bank. Most analysts expect the Fed to enact a final quarter percentage point rate hike this week before pausing for a few months in the hopes that inflation will continue to ease and that lenders will have the chance to stabilize their operations. Let's check in on the day's trading action. Tensions over the banking sector and interest rates really weighed on the major European indices. Losses of over 1% in each London, Paris, and Frankfurt. Shares of the energy giant BP were down 9% as first quarter results dropped from last year's record profits. They are the closing numbers for the European markets. Wall Street's also trending lower. Shares of regional banks dragging down trade. Trading of regional banks PacWest and Western Alliance were paused earlier in the session after tumbling more than 20%. Thousands of television and film writers in the U.S. have gone on strike for the first time in 15 years. Late-night programming like The Daily Show will begin airing reruns this Tuesday. Members of the Writers Guild of America voted to walk out after failing to reach a pay deal. They say they're paying the price for the switch to streaming content. The White House has urged both sides to continue negotiations. Brian Quinn has more.
The scribbling stops and the shows go silent. The Writers Guild of America's 11,500 members are on strike as of Tuesday. Negotiations with studios broke down just before the end of the current 3-year contract, with 98% of WGA membership voting for the walkout.
The company's behavior has created a gig economy inside a union workforce, and their immovable stance in this negotiation has betrayed a commitment to further devaluing the profession of writing.
The union calls it an existential moment, with fierce competition among streaming services and a boom in content production creating more jobs but eroding working conditions and pay. Studios say they're prepared to boost compensation but can't accept proposals for minimum staffing requirements whether writers are needed by the production or not. Streaming giants like Disney Plus and Netflix are already trying to rein in spending under pressure from investors to improve profitability. As news of the strike broke, directors and on-screen talent rallied behind their screenwriters on Twitter and in person at New York's Met Gala.
You know, they got to get a fair deal. So, I'll do whatever I can to support them. I need my writers. I need them real bad.
Viewers will likely see the effects of the current walkout first via reruns in late-night comedy shows. The last WGA strike began in 2007 and lasted 100 days. It's estimated to have cost the California economy some $2.1 billion.
That's all for now, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed. Our business editor, Kate Moody. Thank you very much indeed.